the given manga came out in 2014 and the anime series came out in 2019. And when I tell you that this series has had an absolute chokehold on me, I am not kidding. Listen, I not only have all 6 available volumes in English, I also am getting ready to buy volume 7, and I have volume 8. I have it in my mind because it doesn't have a release date yet, but I'm getting ready. I'm ready, okay? And I'm overqualified to talk about this topic. Not only do I know how to play the bass, I also know how to play the violin, and I am also very gay, okay? I'm gonna talk about it. Not only has this series had an absolute death grip on me, Winter Story, the orchestral version, was my number 4 on my top replayed songs last year. Is that kind of depressing? Yeah, but it's not gonna stop me, okay? I love this series to death, and I need to talk about it somewhere. And what's better than the World Wide Web? So, behind me, I have a character chart because there are a lot of characters in this manga, and I feel like it would be a lot easier to visualize if there's words. I know it's not that interesting, like there's not like pictures on it. My printer's broken, but I think this can make do. I think this will make do. Book 1. The book that started it all, okay? I actually didn't start collecting the book until after I watched the movie, which came out in 2020, I think. I don't know. I just know that it had an absolute fucking chokehold on me, and it still does, and that's okay. And book 1 is honestly one of the shorter books in the series. It kind of just gets straight to the point, and I respect that. It's like, this is what I am, and this is what I'm going to be. Okay, so book 1 starts off with our protagonist. I'm not going to call him the main character, because he's not. He is the protagonist. Protagonist Ritsuka Uenoyama. Okay? Our main man, Uenoyama. And we end up meeting our also main man, Mafiu, our man that literally holds it all together. He is our main character. Okay? Mafiu is our main character. And he has this super fancy guitar. And Uenoyama's like, why do you have that? And Mafiu is like, who knows? Mafiu ends up asking Uenoyama to teach him how to play the guitar after he finds out that he actually knows how to play. And he is like, no. Uenoyama's like, I've never taught anyone. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna teach you. And this leads into our shenanigans of Mafiu just following him around and really just trying to get him to teach him to play the guitar. And it's not working out for him. But it's there. Like, his effort's there, you know? So then Uenoyama asks, well, more so he tells Mafiu, like, you need to join the light music club because I'm not going to teach you how to play the guitar. So Mafiu does actually end up joining the light music club. And Uenoyama, like, really wants to see Mafiu again. Like, he's really wondering where he went, because they used to meet up in like this little corridor behind the gym, and Mafiu's not there. So Uenoyama's like, something's up, something's wacky here, right? So he ends up finding Mafiu. He ends up taking him to the band practice because Uenoyama is in a band. You would never guess. So Uenoyama is in a band with our 2 main men, Akihiko and Haruki. I am going to call Akihiko Aki because I cannot pronounce his name longer than 2 minutes, and to save myself time, Haruki will be known as Haru because I can't do it. I'm sorry. Mafuyu ends up meeting Aki and Haru, and we learn that Aki plays the drums for the band, and Haru plays the bass, which me too. So during that 1 week period where Mafuyu disappeared and Ueyanama couldn't find him, Mafuyu actually shows up at the band practice, and Haru is like, oh my god, you learned how to play the guitar, like that's so cool. And Ueyanama ends up showing up, and he ends up caving in and saying that he'll teach Mafuyu how to play the guitar. And we end up getting hints at the end of book 1 that Haru has feelings for Aki. Book 2 is my favorite book, and you might be asking, why is book 2 your favorite book? Because Ugetsu. Okay, Ugetsu is my favorite character. Me and him are like this, and he's not real. He's my favorite, and I love him through my entire heart, and I need more people to like him because he's my favorite. And he deserved so much better. My man deserved so much better. So in book 2, Ueyanama starts realizing that he might have romantic feelings towards Mafuyu because they start spending a bunch of time together. Like, Ueyanama's teaching Mafuyu how to play the guitar, so they're spending a bunch of time together, and it's like getting like that first crush feeling when you like get all excited to see him. So then Ueyanama starts acting like an elementary school boy, and he starts being kind of mean to Mafuyu. Like, he's just like ripping into him about like everything, and it's sad. It's really embarrassing for him. So then we learn that Mafuyu's guitar was actually Yuki's, and you might be asking, who is Yuki? It's a little heart. Yuki is Mafuyu's ex-boyfriend, and he is dead. Yuki killed himself, and Mafuyu got his guitar from his boyfriend's mom. Very sad. We end up getting introduced to Hiragi, and Hiragi was Yuki and Mafuyu's friend through childhood. Like, they were besties, they were like this, they were inseparable. And we end up learning that Hiragi was actually in a band with Yuki and witnessed the fight that Mafuyu and Yuki had before Yuki offed himself. So he has guilt about that, and he just really wants Mafuyu to accept his apology. He doesn't know what he's apologizing for, but he just really wants to be forgiven. Like, he feels like it's his fault. Mafuyu ends up saying that he's gonna write a song, right? Because Ueyanama listened to Mafuyu go like, la 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 la, la 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 la, once. Listened to my man la 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 once, and was like, holy shit, get this man on the goddamn recording studio, give this man the goddamn aux. Like, he was down. And he, like, my man was fucking down. So Mafuyu ends up joining the band, and they end up saying that Mafuyu can sing. So he's guitarist, not really, and also lead singer. And the whole time, Mafuyu has not written a song. He's not written at all. So they get all like, eh. But they end up performing at a battle of the bands, and Mafuyu ends up singing Winter Story, okay? And if you don't know Winter Story is one of the best Given songs, and it's one of the only Given songs in the anime, but it just goes so hard, okay? Like, this is when we actually learn the full story about Mafuyu and Yuki. So what ends up happening is Mafuyu and Yuki were friends through childhood. So Mafuyu was in an abusive home with his dad. His dad was very abusive to him, and he would not talk at all. And one day, Yuki sees him sitting by himself, and he's trying to play with him, and Mafiu isn't saying anything. So Yuki's like, why aren't you talking? Mafiu is like, whenever I talk, my dad hits me. And Yuki says, well, I'm not your dad. Which can be taken in like a fuck you, I'm not your dad, talk to me. Or in like the cutest way possible, as I like to see it, okay? I love Yuki. I love Yuki so much. I love him so dearly. So they end up growing up together, and they end up dating in middle school and in high school. And they're like this. And Yuki and Mafiu, they end up dating, right? So Yuki, Hiragi, and Shizusumi, which is their other friend, who doesn't get introduced until book 3, but they are friends. All 4 of them are friends. And Shizusumi, Hiragi, and Yuki start a band together. And that's kind of where everything derails, because Yuki gets so into his music that he ends up kind of forgetting about Mafiu. Not in like the way of like, he's just not there, like I just don't like him. It's more in the sense of like, I'm so fixated on one thing that everything around me is kind of dwelling. And that's kind of like his whole thing that happened with Mafiu. And they end up getting into a fight at the train station. And Mafiu's just really upset that Yuki hasn't been talking to him, hasn't been paying attention to him. Like, he's just upset, rightfully so. And Mafiu ends up saying the words, quote, "Would you die for me?" And he ends up walking away. So this is when it kind of gets really sad. Mafiu ends up going to Yuki's house trying to apologize for everything. And Yuki got himself very drunk, and he ended up hanging himself, and he died, obviously. And Mafiu was the one to find him. And that's what we learn during the winter story part, which is very sad. Like, it's honestly kind of horrific. So then Uyunama, after the song, ends up getting so shell-shocked about all of that he ends up taking Mafiu off stage and he kisses him. Imagine singing a song about your dead boyfriend and your new love interest fucking kisses you. Whack. So this is when Moving the Heart, because Yuki's dead. Moving the Heart, they start getting feelings for each other. And this is when Mafiu ends up talking to Hiragi after the show and admits that he might actually have feelings for Ueonama. Moving swiftly along to book 3. So in book 3, it actually starts off with Aki and Haru being very proud parents of Ueonama and Mafiu, and they're just both very excited that Battle of the Bands went very well for their band, and they're soaking in the praise. So after the competition, they end up going out to dinner because they find out that they actually won Battle of the Bands, and they're very excited. And they start branding. They decide that yes, they are going to start a band. Mafiu says that he really likes writing songs and that he wants to do it again. And they all agree, like, yeah, we love that idea. So they end up naming the band Given. Oh my god. And they start branding, they start taking pictures, they make a Twitter account. It's adorable. And the pictures throughout the entire book of their little Twitter posts are so cute, and I love them very dearly. So after the branding, Mafiu ends up taking Ue Noyama to the beach, which is very sad because there is a small comic in one of the books. It was like a bonus story or whatever about how Yuki took Mafiu to the beach for the first time ever. Mafiu had never been to the beach. And it was very cute, and it made me very sad. And he ends up actually confessing his feelings to Uenoyama, and Uenoyama freaks the fuck out. And he decides that, yes, he does also have feelings for Mafuyu, but they can't start dating until they consult the rest of the band, because they had a conversation before about how dating within the band is stupid. So they have to, like, discuss it. So they both end up going to Haruki first. So Haru, they end up going to him first because Haru would be the one that would be more upset about it. So they went to him. Haru decided that, like, yes, I'm okay with it. Like, it's not my problem. But if you post about it and it looks like you guys are dating, I'll kill both of you. So cute. So then they end up actually going to Aki's house, and Aki was like, no, I already knew. And they were like, you're not mad at us? And Aki was like, no, why would I be mad? Like, pop off. So then Aki ends up giving Mafuyu this giant box of, like, CDs and music, and makes him carry it home because Mafuyu doesn't know much about music, so he ends up having to, like, I guess, study it. So he starts listening to, like, all of these music CDs. And this is when we actually lead into more of the Aki and Ugetsu storyline, because what ends up happening is Mafuyu realizes that Aki has a lot of classical music, like, in his CDs, and Mafuyu's like, that's strange. That's weird. So they end up actually going to Ugetsu's performance, and Mafuyu's like, oh, how'd you get these tickets? Like, this is so cool. And Aki's like, oh no, don't thank me, thank him. Like, he's obsessed with you. Like, I love Ugetsu, okay? I fucking love him. So they end up watching it, and we get, like, a little bit more into, like, the Aki and Ugetsu situation, which is really sad. Like, I love them, but they're just heartbreaking. So when they go to the concert, we actually learn that Ugetsu is, like, this world-renowned violin player. Like, he literally, like, makes money off of playing the violin. Like, it's, like, genuinely, like, this crazy thing that he's, like, super fucking good at. And that's why they got the tickets for it, because Ugetsu was the soloist. He was doing Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto number 35 in D major, which honestly isn't my favorite Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto, but I do think that it is good. And listening to it while reading the rest of the book, it really puts you in the mindset. Like, I love Tchaikovsky. Like, I love Tchaikovsky. So then, after that, it's just more of Ugetsu. Like, more of the book is just Ugetsu playing his little violin, and Aki's feelings towards Ugetsu, which is literally bordering hate. Like, he loves him so much that he hates him. And it's upsetting. Like, they love each other so much that they hate each other. So then, after everything goes down and Mafuyu hangs out with Hideki some more and they're just doing their thing, we cut down to Ugetsu and Aki, and we learn that the apartment that Aki was actually living in is actually Ugetsu's house, and he lives there. And Ugetsu gets home, and they end up doing the devil's tango because Aki is just so entranced by Ugetsu. And this is where I'm gonna put their little heart, because they own my little heart. And that's gonna be there. So at the start of book 4, we actually start with Mafuyu meeting Ugetsu. And we end up fully getting the full relationship from Ugetsu's eyes of him and Aki, and it's really upsetting. Like, it's really heart-wrenching. So this is when we get just their full story in general, and I am going to read a little bit out of the book because I love them dearly. Aki said, "While I was competing for first or second place in the competitions in Japan, there was a genius winning a string of first place prizes abroad, chewing up and spitting out the dreams of talented young performers back home. His name was Ugetsu Murata." So, Ugetsu ends up meeting Aki, and Aki's like starstruck, and Ugetsu's like, "Oh, you're the dude that won second place, right?" He was like, "You're holding back your potential, but your Brahms was pretty good." Like, he's a little bastard, and I love him. So this ends up starting their string of like being attached to each other, because Ugetsu is so into his violin and Aki admires that. So Aki ends up getting like this like admirational love towards Ugetsu, and they start dating. And in another excerpt, it said, "I wanted those needles to expose everything inside me, to strip me bare. I wanted to dull the sharpness of his sound." They are codependency at its finest. So then Ugetsu tells Mafiu that every day he's just waiting for Aki to leave him. He knows that Aki's gonna leave him, and every day he waits for it and he waits for it because he knows it's coming. Like, he knows that there's someone else, and he's waiting. It's really sad because Ugetsu ends up saying that one day Aki got him a gift, and Ugetsu was so upset that he had gotten him a gift, not because it was a dumb gift, but because he didn't want to accept the fact that he actually did love Aki. So it was a mug, and he ended up literally smashing the mug. Like, he was just so upset, and he said that he knew that he should have just accepted it and said thank you. Like, there should have been, like, he should have just said thank you, but he did not, and he smashed it to the floor. Ugetsu ends up saying that he knows he'll never meet anyone as good for him as Aki is, but he refuses to accept that, which is heart-wrenching. So then, throughout the course of the book, Mafiu starts spending more time with Aki because Aki is teaching him music and whatnot, and Uyonama ends up getting jealous about it, and they end up getting into a fight. And Mafiu ends up sharing that he's just very worried that they're going to end up like him and Yuki, or they're going to end up like Ugetsu and Aki. So then, as it goes, Aki and Ugetsu end up getting into a fight, and Aki ends up at Haru's house. So they end up getting drunk, and Aki tells Haru, like, "Stop looking at me the way he looks at me. You look too much like him right now, and it's making me upset." Aki ends up telling Haru, "I could do anything right now, and you wouldn't stop me because you're in love with me." And Haru is like, "Oh shit," you know. So then they end up about to do the Devil's Tango, and Aki ends up stopping because Haru says that he would do anything for him, and it makes Aki just feel weird, and it was just not the right time or the right place to be saying that, and Aki stops it completely. He was like, no. So then after that, Haru starts feeling insecure in his place in the band. He starts noticing that, you know, Mafiu and Uyonama are amazing at their talents, and they started super young, and it's amazing. And Haru also notices that Aki is great at the drums. He's great at the violin. Like, he is just, he's upset that he isn't also some sort of prodigy, and it starts making him very insecure in his place in the band. And this is when Aki tells Haru, like, we need you, like, you keep this band together. He was like, if a band was just 4 prodigies, it wouldn't be a band, it would just be 4 solo artists. And that kind of snaps Haru out of like his like, I don't deserve to be here type mindset. And Haru and Aki end up becoming total roommates because Aki has nowhere else to stay because he left Ugetsu. While Aki is staying at Haru's house, Aki ends up actually, like, you know, practicing his drums and his violin while he's there, and Haru ends up gaining further admiration towards Aki for how much he actually works towards his instruments. Book 5, the biggest book out of the series so far, at least that I have. So the start of the book, Given actually joined another band competition called CAC, or CAC, and they end up actually winning their placement into it through, like, publicity. Like, people basically voted in the bands, and Given got voted in. So Aki and Haru are still living with each other, and it's nothing serious. They're just kind of like living in the same space. Hideki and Mafuyu are at a festival, and Mafuyu ends up inviting Ue and Aoyama, and they end up walking off, Hideki doing his own thing, and there ends up being fireworks. And at the same time, Aki and Haru are watching the fireworks from Haru's apartment. And Aki says that he actually didn't even know that there was a festival at this time of year because Ugetsu's house was soundproof and there was tall windows because it was a below ground apartment. And he ends up saying that, you know, he does love Ugetsu, but that he feels like he'll be better off without him, and that he's actually fully ending things with him, which broke my heart. Okay, Ugetsu deserves so much better. You don't get it. No one gets it. No one gets it. No one gets how much Ugetsu deserves better than I do, okay? So they end up going to the CAC performances, and they end up, you know, watching the other bands perform. And this is where Ueyanama actually meets Hideki and Shizusumi for the first time, and the uncanny differences between Ueyanama and Hideki is kind of funny, and they become like mortal sworn enemies, but like when 2 kids are like super similar so they hate each other, like that type of way. So after that, they end up going into more practices, and Ueyanama basically puts the entire band through fucking hell to make sure that they're good enough for the performance. And Mafuyu still doesn't have his song fully written, but he knows that there is going to be one, and blah 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 blah. So they end up practicing. It's like this whole thing. So after some practicing, Mafuyu ends up going back to Ugetsu, and they start talking. And what ends up happening is that after Mafuyu learns about like Ugetsu's full love lamenting to Aki, Mafuyu kind of writes a song based off of like Ugetsu's feelings for Aki, which is kind of really fucking embarrassing, because imagine telling some 16-year-old, like, I'm deeply in love with this dude, but I can't be in love with him because X, Y, and Z, and he writes a song about it. So then he ends up writing a song about it, and Ugetsu was at the competition because, of course, he's obsessed with Mafuyu, and he literally loves Aki, so he's at the performance. And after the show ends, he ends up walking out of the show, and Aki is like, I'm gonna go walk someone to the train station. So he ends up running after Ugetsu, and this is where Aki breaks up with Ugetsu. Ugetsu is walking and knows that Aki is behind him, And Aki's like, hang on, hold up, like, stop walking so fast. And Ugetsu's like, no, because I know if I turn around, you're going to break up with me. And Aki uses, like, some weird violin metaphor because they had gotten into a fight before about how Aki can't give up the violin. But it was more so, like, Ugetsu using the violin as himself, like, as a stand-in. Like, you can't give up the violin, because if you give up the violin, you'd give up me. And that is kind of, like, his metaphor instead of being upfront about it. So Aki ends up saying, I'm not giving up the violin. I just found more love playing the drums than I did playing the violin. He said the violin got me through a lot of things, but the drums makes me love music. So Ugetsu doesn't end up turning around at all, and he's still facing the other way. And when he turns around, Aki ends up leaving, and Ugetsu cries so hard that he ends up falling on the ground. There actually is a bonus, like, comic at the end of book 5 where Aki, after he walked away from Ugetsu, he ends up also crying, obviously, because he just broke up with his long time on and off again boyfriend, and ends up saying, like, I feel so terrible, like, I'm gonna go apologize to him one day, like, I will go back to him. I just want justice for Ugetsu. Ugetsu deserves so much better. So then, after that, Aki throws himself into school and, like, starts working his ass off, and he ends up moving out of Haru's apartment, and he's fucking it up. So then Mafiu ends up taking Haru to Aki's violin performance, and Haru was like, I didn't know that he was that good at the violin. Like, this is incredible. And he ends up getting 4th place in the competition that he was playing in. After the competition, Haru ends up leaving. Like, he just didn't even want to see Aki because he felt terrible. So he ends up leaving. And Aki ends up catching up to him. And they basically confess their love to each other. And it's really cute. And they are in love, that they are going to start dating. The Heart of Praise. Oh, Akiko and Haruki, they're in love. And yes, I am going to keep the heart up for Ugetsu and Aki, because in my heart, they still love each other and they'll fix their problems. I'm delusional. So, at the beginning of the book, Mafiu ends up actually spending the night at Uenoyama's house, and he's, like, laying down and he's going to sleep, and it's, like, this whole thing. So then Mafiu ends up seeing a clock in Uenoyama's room, and he ends up getting a Yuki flashback, and he's like, Yuki had that exact same clock in his room, and he's, like, crying, and it's, like, this whole thing. So Uenoyama comforts him about it, and justice for my man Mafiu and my man Ugetsu, okay? They deserve so much better. Actually, Uenoyama's really good for Mafiu. But Ugetsu, justice for Ugetsu. I'm just saying. Book 6. The last book that I have. So this actually starts with Uenoyama and the rest of Given learning that they didn't actually win the CAC performance. And, you know, that's okay, because they end up instead getting an email from a producer saying that they want them to actually write a debut album. So during that time when they're trying to figure it out, because they brought it up to everyone and everyone's like, yeah, like, that's such a good idea, Mafiu wanted to sit on the idea and he wanted to think about it for a little bit. Like, he wanted to, like, weigh his pros and cons. So during that time, Uenoyama actually ends up joining Hideki and Shizusume's band as a backup guitarist, because they don't really have one at the moment because Yuki is dead. So they end up actually, like, working with him, and this is when we actually get, like, a full perspective on what happened with Yuki from Hidegi's perspective, and it's basically like he watched as Yuki threw himself into his music, and him and Mafiu started to fight more, and he didn't even know that Yuki killed himself until a few days after, and he just knows that the first person to have actually found him was Mafiu, and that he feels terrible for not being able to help his friend during that time. So, since Mafiu ended up having to go to a different high school than the three of them, Hideki and Shizusumi end up becoming super close. And this is when we learned that my man, Hideki, has feelings for Shizusumi. Okay? It's not like we don't know if Shizusumi has feelings for Hideki yet, but we know that Hideki has feelings for Shizusumi, and he feels it. So after that, as Uyanama's been working on being the backup guitarist, Hideki ends up asking Uyanama to actually finish a song that Yuki was writing, but the problem was that the song was for Mafiu, and it's kind of weird because, as Uyanama's sister put it, it's like finishing a love letter for someone, but it was from someone else, which does suck. Like, that's a shitty situation to put someone into, and it's really sad that he actually did that to him, but Uyanama actually ends up taking it and saying, yeah, like, I'm gonna do that, like, I'm gonna finish that. So he ends up throwing himself into the music and into the band with Hideki and Shizusumi, and he's throwing himself in it, and he ends up kind of forgetting to talk to Mafiu. So what ends up happening is Mafiu's coming home from work one day and ends up running into Uyanama, Shizusumi, and Hideki as they're walking from the studio that they're working in. And Mafiu ends up like seeing them together, and Hideki's like, oh, hey, Mafiu, and Uyanama's like, oh, hey, and Mafiu's kind of just like, hi. So then Uyanama's like, we're about to go get dinner, like, do you want to join us? And Mafiu's like, no, it's okay, like, I kind of just want to go home. So then as Mafiu is walking away, we get his perspective, saying that he feels like it's kind of like what's happening with Yuki all over again. Like, he's seeing closer comparisons to Uyanama and Yuki, especially now that he joined Hideki and Shizusumi's band. So he's very worried that they're going to end up like how him and Yuki did, which is a genuine concern, actually. Like, that's an understandable concern. So then, afterwards, we see that Hideki and Shizusumi are walking from school one day, and Shizusumi and Hideki are just talking, they're walking, it's whatever. And Hideki is kind of just upset that Shizusumi's on his phone. So then Shizusumi's like, actually, I have to go. And Hideki's like, what? So he ends up leaving, and he actually went to go talk to Mafiu because Mafiu had asked to talk to him. So Mafiu ends up letting Shizusumi know everything that's been going on, catching him up, and Shizusumi is like, you have a great deal. Like, this is something actually that's going to help you. And Mafiu ends up sharing his concern that he's actually very anxious about the fact that he might be finishing Yuki's dream without him, that he's finishing someone else's dream, and he's very worried about that. And Shizusumi ends up telling Mafiu, like, hey, if you're not willing to spend your rest of your life with this band and with Uyanama, leave the band and don't give them that heartache. Like, leave and find something else, because you'll only end up holding them back. After that, Mafiu ends up at Aki's new apartment, and that's where the end of book 6 ends. So the relationships that we have so far are Mafiu and Uyanama, and then we have Hideki and Shizusumi, and we have Akihiko and Haruki and Ugetsu and Akihiko, because I'm not letting go of that. I am not letting go of Ugetsu and Aki. It's going to happen. I'm fully delusional, and I know that. So since this actually is a BL comic, I am very aware that it's probably going to end in hopefully a good ending, because they usually do. It is confirmed that we're getting a second season of Given, so I think it's quite spooky. Like, I hope it ends well. I'm very worried about them. I think that it is going to end with Matthew saying that he is going to debut with Given, but I think he is going to still have that insecurity of finishing Yuki's dream without him. Like, I think that is going to still be something that weighs on him. Like, that's not really something you can just forget about. So I think it's going to have a lot of him like just being really worried about that. And I think Haru and Aki are going to stay together. I don't think Ugetsu is going to come steal the show. I wish he would, but I don't think he will. But I think it will have a lot of Aki like grappling with the idea that he did leave Ugetsu. Like, I think he's going to be not upset, but it's going to be like an insecurity in the back of his mind. And I think that's going to affect him and Haru's relationship, because that, like, it does make sense. Like, you've been with someone literally since like freshman year, and it's just like something that's been like weighing on you. So I don't think it's going to be something that he's going to get over quickly. And if he does, I'll be amazed. Just fucking justice for Ugetsu. Like, Ugetsu Murata. Justice. I miss him. I need him. So when I do get book 7, I am going to make another video on like how book 7 fits into like the whole story and everything, since I am literally obsessed with Given. And then I'll probably do the same when book 8 comes out in English, because I'm obsessed. So that is where I am going to end the video for now. I hope that you did enjoy watching it if you made it this far. And just like in my last video, I really hope that like you guys can bring your own opinions into the comments. Like, I really want to see other people's opinions on this story, especially since I am, like I've said previously before, I am obsessed with it, and I love seeing other people's opinions on it. So don't forget to like and subscribe if you did actually enjoy this video, because I will be coming out with more Given content later on. And I will see you in the next video. I hope you have an amazing day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.